So a little bit of background around who we are. Social Justice Fund Northwest, also known as what you'll likely hear, SJF, is a member-funded foundation that resources grassroots movements for liberation. Instead of funding temporary services, we focus our funding on providing fundamental support to organizations in the Northwest and Mountain West. So specifically, that is Idaho, Oregon, Montana, Washington, and Wyoming. Those are the 5 states we focus our funding in. On those states working and with organizations working towards social justice in those 5 states. Our members democratically choose grantees that build social, racial, economic, and political equality and power in the work that they're doing. Um, and we focus on funding community organizing that seeks to address the root causes of problems and works to find systemic solutions. Because we understand that often it's that work, that kind of work, that is ignored by traditional philanthropy. And our goal is to move money to places that we know traditional philanthropy is ignoring. Next slide. So, how do we define rural organizing? I wish I could do a fun little drum roll thing. So, SJF's 2026 and 2027 Giving Project will focus on resourcing rural organizing. So, funding community organizing that's happening in rural, frontier, or reservation communities across Idaho, Montana, Oregon, Washington, and Wyoming. Rural organizers are cultivating strong community networks in the face of huge hurdles: far right state governments, white supremacist strongholds, underfunded infrastructure, food apartheids, massive wealth disparities, and constantly rising costs of living, including rent. Though 20% of people in the US live in rural areas, they only receive 7% of philanthropic dollars. This is the primary reason we at SJF prioritize moving money to rural movements. SJF is aware that rural and frontier communities can look different from state to state, so we ground our definition of rural in U.S. Census data. After we consulted with rural organizers in our granting regions, we consider any location in that will show up gray or purple in a map that I can just drop the link. We'll drop the link into you. I can see it on this map to be rural for our grant evaluation and priority assignment. So that's where we start with our definition of rural. In addition, we allow our grant applicants to contextualize in their application why and how their work is rural, even if their business location is in an address that is a metropolitan or urban center. So that is how we look for and contextualize what is rural in the organizing that we hope to resource and with this project. Next slide. So this is the fun part. It's fun for me. A few examples of past grantees that have been resourced through Social Justice Fund's rural organizing work funding is Shelter JH. They're based in Wyoming and they focus on building grassroots and political power so that all community members can live locally, creating a more resilient and just future for Jackson Hole. They host educational election season events and endorse housing champion candidates. They partner with numerous organizations to further local and state political objectives and empower supporters to lobby representatives regarding local development projects. Shelter JH currently is focusing on deepening their outreach with immigrant communities by building up Latinx organizers from their current base. So they've got funding in the past for us. Another organization that has is Unite Oregon, and led by people of color, immigrants, and refugees, rural communities, and people experiencing poverty. Unite Oregon organizes statewide to build a unified intercultural movement for justice. The most recent award they got supports the Rogue Valley chapter's capacity to ensure a supportive organizational structure that centers community-determined priority issues, which they decided as affordable housing, economic justice, youth leadership development, and immigrant rights. North Idaho Pride Alliance, which is another one, another org we fund, has gotten funds from rural organizing, is doing work, is an organization of lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and questioning, intersect, and allied folks and community groups working together to create a unified North Idaho. They accomplish this work by building a network of intentional relationships in their community, educating the community about LGBTQIA plus issues and the lived experiences of LGBTQIA plus people and their allies, and advocacy to create cross-cultural, cross-movement culture for advancing LGBTQIA plus equality across Northern Idaho. And then the Crow Language Consortium, they bring CLC brings Crow people together around language, an irreplaceable facet of their indigenous culture and heritage. CLC is a collective of Crow schools, colleges, and educators working to preserve the Crow language to ensure they can pass it on to future generations. They develop language materials such as textbooks, dictionaries, flashcards, posters, and more they provide access to apps and multimedia, and organize intensive teacher trainings and workshops in an effort to preserve and spread and maintain the language. Oh, I love CLC too. I'm so glad you know them. Shout out, Faith. Thanks for the comment. Our website has examples of some other folks that we have funded that are doing rural organizing, but we just wanted to pull forward some examples for you all so you guys can just, hear some of the folks that are doing some of this awesome work.
Thank you, Andriana.
Sure.
Okay, so this is the part where we talk through like what is this thing called a Giving Project. There are 7 sort of like major pieces of a Giving Project. The first is that it's an intentionally cross-race and cross-class space. We are really trying to upend the traditional philanthropy model, where often it's white, wealthy, highly educated folks, sometimes with like a savior complex or a charity mindset, making the decisions about where money goes and what work is funded. We have real faith in the resource of lived experiences and cultural understandings, which folks who aren't wealthy and white add to movement spaces. So this is a place that's in a cohort that is intentionally built to have folks of varied lived experiences come together and build together. The second piece is that we do political education and personal reflection on both race and class identities. So we will spend a couple of full days together unearthing and investigating our own understandings of race and class and how they inform the decisions we make and how we see the world. It feels pretty essential to come into the Giving Project space in an informed and careful way where we're really conscious of our own biases and preconceptions. We will also do political education around the justice area. So in this case, hear from folks who are organizing in rural spaces in our 5-state region to talk about like what's the work, what's pressing right now, what's happening on the ground in case you are less familiar. The third piece is that everyone gives a meaningful financial gift, which is individualized. So the idea of a meaningful gift is something that you'll talk about with one of the facilitators in a one-on-one meeting, because meaningful looks different to everyone, especially in a cross-class space. So what we do in those meetings is we encourage people to step into a place of discomfort to push our own boundaries without compromising your financial position, of course. And then number 4 is that everyone fundraises. This is the part that is scary to a lot of people, is the fundraising part. So we will train you on how to fundraise your family, your friends, your peers, how to engage your community in this particular issue area for the Giving Project. And we'll also offer individual and individualized support through any challenging moments that arise. But this is a fundamental piece of the project, is asking folks for money. 5 is that you learn directly from grassroots social justice movements. So this is very much related to number 2, which we talked about, just understanding the topics that are paramount to rural organizing in the Northwest and the Mountain West. Six is a democratic grant making process. Everyone will learn how to read and score grants and applications from organizations doing rural organizing work. And then as a group, you all decide as a collective who you want to distribute your funds to, the funds that you fundraise from your own communities, where you would like that money to go. So again, kind of uprooting or pushing back against traditional philanthropy where someone behind a closed door gets to decide. This time it's like regular, degular, everyday folks coming together and deciding where the money that they raised is going to go. And then last is community building and personal storytelling, which sort of undergirds everything else. We really want to take the time to build trust, to build a base among ourselves, and to learn from each other, both in our political education, our personal reflection, and also in our fundraising and grant making. So we really hope that folks come out of this cohort experience with new friends, new allies, new community that you can continue to build and engage with, folks who you are values aligned with and politically aligned with, who can be a support system for you in this wild world beyond the Giving Project. So as a GP alum myself, and Andriana is one too, and Andrea, who's here to talk later in our GP alum panel, this was very true for me. It was a great space to find real community. Okay, I will move to the next slide. Oh, you're muted, Andriana.
I could say I felt it. I just knew it. We want to share a little bit more about the expectations, commitments, and the logistics of this project. So if you go to the next slide, and Emily, are you able to open the schedule?
I am.
Okay, cool. So there is a total of 13 sessions in this Giving Project and cohort model. Some things just to point about what you'll see about the sessions is that it opens, the first session will begin late October. I'll back up. The sessions are scattered across a series of Wednesday evenings and then Saturday and Sundays mostly. We try to choose times, one in the evening that align with people's availabilities, and then also on the weekend so people aren't having to hopefully miss work and stuff like that. So it opens October 22nd. You'll see that most
28th,
of
sorry.
Sorry, 28th. That is an 8. I saw 8 and said 2. It opens Wednesday, October 28th. And you'll see that session, like many of them, are on Zoom. After that session, we'll have a couple sessions, a weekend session in November, and that's when we'll focus on the racial justice and class workshops that Emily mentioned a little bit earlier. Those also will be virtual. After that, we'll have a couple Wednesdays, one in November, another one in November, another one in December, and we'll just pause you out for the year. It'll pause out for the year so people can have their holiday and do what they do on their holiday. There will be holiday work, if you will, things that you can be doing over the holiday, but we recognize it's just a time for folks to slow down and turn inwards. So then we come back into the new year with an in-person session. While we want to make this actually quite accessible for folks, so we are going to offer it virtually, we do understand the value of bringing you all together and having an opportunity to convene, commune, break bread, learn together. So there's a weekend in Seattle that we're going to help support folks getting into Seattle to be there for fundraising training and some grant scoring support, really the brass tacks of some of this work and labor. And then after that first weekend together, we'll have one session in February, one session in March, and then we'll bring folks back together in April in person to make decisions, to say, okay, all that time y'all spent reading, fundraising, all the labor you've done at this point, we come together in April and we're gonna tell you how much money is raised. We're gonna pull out all of our notes and talk about where we decide to put this money. And across 3 days, one in-person weekend, and if we need more time, a Wednesday evening Zoom session. We're going to decide where all that money goes. And we were going to have you all help the folks part of this cohort, help us decide where this money goes. And then we'll wrap it up, distribute some funds. And then for the as capacity allows, we always hold time for a celebration to celebrate all of the labor, because it is labor that you all put in to do this work. And that also will have that in person in Seattle on a Sunday in May. Again, trying to choose a weekend just to support folks' ability to get there if and as they can.
Awesome. Thanks, Andriana. And one thing to note, you all, too, is that this weekend is MLK weekend, which we chose specifically because we felt people might have more time to travel if you need to travel from out of state. And again, underscoring that for folks who do need travel support, we will be able to provide it. So keeping that in mind.
Thank you, Emily, for pulling those forward.
Of course. And look how cute we are. This is staff and board.
One piece that's really important for us, for folks understanding what's expected of them. We think it's just a point of accessibility and transparency to know. So if you are a giving project participant, we expect that you will attend all sessions, but particularly the required sessions that are necessary for you to really be able to move forward in this work is the racial justice and racial capitalism class analysis workshop session. That was one of the weekend sessions. The fundraising training, which was another weekend session, and the grant making training, and then the decision days where we make decisions together. You also will have scheduled one-on-one meetings with the facilitator, so that's part of this work. Inform the facilitators if any sessions you'll miss. We understand things come up, so even if it's the same day or during the session, let us know so we can make the appropriate accommodations for you in your absence. Complete any pre and post work sessions within 1 week of the session dates if you're missing sessions. Respond within 48 hours to a facilitator's outreach via emails and texts. Fundraise and score grant applications, and then reach out proactively to us, the facilitators and fellow cohort members, for support needs. We believe in trust-based philanthropy, and trust-based philanthropy is relational work. Like, the premise of this GP is relationship building with the cohort. And in order to do that, we need the input and participation of the folks who say they want to be there. And so one way that we work to build a curriculum that cultivates collective power is to be transparent about the minimum requirements for participation in the cohort and how to work with us if for some reason accommodation is needed or you're not going to miss it, because we understand this is happening as life is also happening. So if you cannot meet these expectations at any point in the GP, you can expect that we'll reach out to you to have a conversation about your capacity for the project, check in if there's any support for accessibility or accommodation needs that you might have, or we'll just check in if this is not the right timing for you to be a part of this project, and talk through what it looks like to transition out if that's what is feeling like needs to happen at that point. We, are used to having folks sometimes have to transition out for life things, and the facilitators, Emily and Adisa, who's not here right now, work really hard to make sure folks can access what they need. There will be a notable point in the project where if you just haven't done certain pieces that they've listed as required, you will feel behind and unable to feel like how to move forward. And we just want folks to know right up front that there is that amount of labor. And if you can't make it, we might have a conversation about what it looks like to not be in this project and join a different one, or support in a different way.
Thanks, Andriana. And then in the chat, Tanya was asking what you meant by fundamental support. I think maybe you mentioned it early on.
Let's see. Early on.
Or Tanya, were you talking about that for a different slide?
I think she was talking about it when we were looking at the dates.
Oh, the dates.
Oh,
No.
fundraising. It was fundraising support. So we
Mm.
build in a session to support the support folks in their fundraising because you have like a series of weeks to fundraise. So we build in time in the curriculum to dig in with you on your fundraisings. Sorry if I said
Actually,
something.
I'm sorry, that's not actually what I was asking about.
Oh,
This was early on when you're talking about what the social justice organization is about. You were talking about providing fundamental support versus short-term or temporary support. So I'm just trying to understand what that means.
um, so I hope I didn't was fundamental against about temporary support. I would say the part that we would characterize as fundamental is that we are, we consider ourselves movement infrastructure. So we are resourcing like movement work. That's our intention, to resource movement work. And because we recognize that movement work, grassroots organizations, organizing work, is under resourced and not really resourced, we consider the resources that we're giving to this work fundamental because it's work that is changing policies, interrupting legislation, or like harmful practices that are happening in communities. And so we think about, and some of our grants are multi-year, not all of them are, but some of them are multi-year. This one will likely be a multi-year grant that we make. And then all of our grants are unrestricted. So we say we ask folks to, obviously fit the theme of what we're asking for, but we recognize that at any given point, what you need to spend your funds on in order to advance your movement can be vast and different and change in a second. And so we consider our approach to giving unrestricted dollars a way to just deepen our relationship and the way we resource in the community, different from how mainstream philanthropy operates.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for the question, Tanya.
Thank you. Okay. I'm sorry, Mike. I'm on two things too. So let me
Yeah, you take your time.
Oh yeah. So as an organization committed to accessibility, SJF recognizes our role in mitigating the spread of airborne viruses like COVID-19. And we aim to take all possible actions towards hosting COVID safer public events, including our GP. So what that looks like for us is well-fitting masks and respirators such as KN95s, KF94s, or N95s will be required for all participants and facilitators to wear when we're not eating or drinking. And SJF will provide adequate respirators for all participants. Air purification will be provided either through HEPA filtration via the venue or portable air purifiers. Participants will be asked to take a rapid COVID test before entering each in-person session. We provide the test. We provide the rapid test for all participants. Anytime you have to take them, we'll provide them. If their rapid test is positive, participants will inform facilitators who will offer alternative ways to engage in session programming. And then if you feel sick or feeling any symptoms of illness, participants are required to not show up. Like, don't come, stay home, take care of yourself, and will be offered alternative ways to engage in the program and or make up what you missed. We don't believe in having to work through your sickness and illness. And so we just ask that you are mindful of not being in the space if you're not feeling well, mindful of your community and yourself and others, and just don't show up and let us know. We'll make the accommodations.
Awesome. Thank you, Andriana. All right. So now that you've got some of the like nitty-gritty pieces out of the way, we're going to give you a sense of sort of like what the curriculum looks like. So what do these 6 months worth of sessions look like? The curriculum does go through a sort of like arc of evolution, so to speak. So there are sort of 3 big phases. The first one is the political education. So this is where we're really laying the groundwork as a cohort. We're coming into common understanding about who we want to be, how we want to be a community. we engage in political education and personal reflection to develop a shared set of social justice philanthropic values, which we'll use in later phases of the Giving Project. So this is a place where we really try to move at the speed of trust, get each other on the same page, and get to know each other. So the first 4 sessions here that are listed here are sort of this first phase. The second phase is when we do grant making. So in this phase, we're going to apply what we've learned about social justice philanthropy to grant making. So this phase spans the grant making training and support sessions. And it's also a little bit too in phase 3 because of those decision days, right? So, but for those of you who have done GPs before, you'll see that we kind of swapped. Usually we do fundraising first and then grant scoring. But for this Giving Project, we're trying out grant scoring first and then fundraising. So for the 3 of you in the room who are definitely GP alums, if you're like, what? That's why. And then the last phase is the fundraising and distribution phase. So in this phase, we learn about fundraising using a donor organizing framework, and we support each other in making our asks, which many participants say is the hardest part of the project. And then we decide how to distribute those raised funds to grantees according to SJS criteria and values. So this phase is sort of like the second half of the Giving Project. And yeah, that's it, so to speak. So we also like, as Andrina said, in the spirit of transparency, we like to give you a sense of like what the workload outside of sessions might look like. So we made this little key for you. The blue circles are when the work outside of sessions feels pretty light. Yellow is when it feels kind of medium, and then orange is the heaviest time. So you'll see that like when we start off in late October and November, there's not a ton of work that you're doing outside of sessions. There is some like kind of intense work that you're doing in sessions where you're talking about race and class really openly, right? You're in a real growth edge moment, hopefully. You're going to be building with cohort members who you've never met before. You're going to be learning about the justice area. So there's a lot of work that happens within sessions, and then there's personal work that might happen outside of sessions, but not sort of like concrete work of like grant scoring or fundraising yet. In December and January, that's when we're starting to move from like the theory into the action. So this is when you'll do your grant making training and you'll start doing the actual grant reading and scoring, which for many people is a time intensive process, especially if you haven't read or scored grants before. February and March also, this is when you will start doing fundraising deeply, and we'll be having one-on-ones with you to help coach you up or talk through any support you might need as you do that. So from December to March is the heaviest time of the Giving Project because that's when you're doing the grant scoring and the fundraising. In April, hopefully things will start to lighten up. So this is when your fundraising ends, and then you get excited because this is when you start to be able to give out the money, right? So, but those decision days are hard. Like you have to say no, right? So, oops, sorry. So you will be making difficult decisions based on criteria and what you fundraised. And then finally in May, this is a really light month. The only thing that's happening this month is the celebration in person and exit interviews. So we do take your feedback seriously. We've really changed Giving Projects based on what your participant experience is. And then we just make sure that you have some choice about how you want to stay connected to the cohort and to SJF. So that's sort of the arc of things. Sometimes we say, and this is a tricky number because it's different for everyone, but sometimes we say that there's approximately like 100 hours of total work, including sessions, including fundraising and grant reading. But that really varies based on, first of all, individual capacity, right? Like lives, and you just have less time to fundraise. You have less time to fundraise, right? Or you have less time to spend on the grant scoring than you wanted to, right? So it does sort of depend on what your individual situation. Also depends on things like, do you have experience doing grants reading before, right? Like how long does it take you to read a grant app? Does it only take you 15 minutes or does it take you an hour? So so that number is very much a loosey-goosey number. Faith, you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question maybe for folks who've participated before. So everybody in the cohort is like raising money and then we all decide where it goes. How do you talk to somebody to give you money if you don't know where it's going to go yet? Like how do the conversation work? How do those conversations go and kind of a little bit about your experience fundraising for like a larger collective?
That is such a good question. And can we pause on it until we get to the panel time? Because then they can work that into their response rate. That's a great question. Um, awesome. So Andrea and Indigo, keep that in mind as we keep moving. Okay, cool. Thank you, Faith.
Access needs. So please tell us any access needs you have in the application form. We work really hard to help fill and support those needs. We'll send an application form at the end of this presentation for you to fill out if you're interested in. But some of the common access needs that we can meet are tech, so hotspots, laptops, childcare support payments, and then live captioning and or interpretation and translations if there's a language barrier. So those are some of the ones people have listed in the past. If you have others, please don't hesitate to let us know because we try to build that into the process. And then, my favorite thing to talk about, money. So, Emily mentioned one of the big takeaways about being a part of a cohort is like just building community, being in community. Like there's a vast community of folks that have engaged in giving projects, and you really join that community and cohort if you join and become a giving project member. So we like to just share a little bit about like what does that look like in numbers. All the GPs we've done so far, we have distributed $11,371,908 into the community through giving projects, with the support of 8,905 donors across this time, with an alumni network right now of 910 people. So we just like to remind people it's people meet in giving projects, they stay connected in giving projects. The relationships span years, cities, jobs. We have folks from old giving projects who sign up to say, yeah, have the new giving projects ask us for money, we'll help them with the easy asks. There is really a community of people that are invested and supported to committing these projects, and as a participant you get to have the privilege of joining this cohort of folks. The photo here is from the 2024 Environmental Justice Project. So some members from there and staff in that photo.
And here's Andrea. Andrea with her
cat. We are, like Emily said, we do have some alumni in the room with us that we asked to share a little bit about their experience. So today we have Indigo, who uses she, her pronouns, joining us, and Andrea, who uses she, her pronouns, joining us. So I'm going to toss it over to Emily to get us going with the panel.
Yay. Okay, let me
And Andre, we know you're an alumni too, so if things come up for you that you want to share in the chat, feel free to share in the chat as well. We're recognized that we're conscious of time, so we will try not to do too much. We want to save space for questions, but feel free to contribute in the chat if something moves you.
Oh, cancel. Hold on. I'm trying to spotlight, but it's not. Let's see.
It worked.
It worked, but then it didn't work. Okay, you know what? I'm just gonna let Andrea and Indigo. I'm gonna figure that out. But Andrea, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'm happy to go first, unless Indigo, you're raring to go. Either way, it's fine with me.
Oh yeah, go first, Andrea.
Okay, great. My name's Andrea. I use she, her pronouns, and as you saw, I was part of the 2024 Environmental Justice Giving Project, and gosh, it was, some of the questions that the SJF staff had provided was, oh, think about, what you wish you'd known, what you really valued about the cohort. And I kept finding myself drawing lines between those two. So, one of the things I wish I'd known was, wow, this is probably going to lead to some uncomfortable conversations with people that I know that I haven't had before. And I don't know if I would have been pushed to have those conversations if it hadn't been for the Giving Project. And I think the space that that opened up in ongoing relationships and family relationships is really valuable and lasting for me. And so I'm glad for that. It's sometimes good that you don't know what's coming. And I think, I was looking at that chart about like the workload and thinking, oh, I remember when Adiza showed me that. And I was like, oh, it'll be fine. And probably just who I am, like it was more work than I expected, and I made it more work than I expected because I was really engaged. I felt like I had learned a lot. I started going through my list of people that I wanted to talk to about this, and it was long. And rather than being like, I'm just gonna right size this, I just tried to go for it. And it was a lot. But I also couldn't have anticipated how much growth I had personally in my own learning and building relationships with others. I work in fundraising, but had never done or had only done really, really small self-fundraising projects. And so it was very different for me to be both making a gift that was larger than I ever had and to be asking people um, for gifts of, I asked people for a whole range of sizes of gifts, but it was really stretching. But I think I came away from it like all of that was highly satisfying for the person in me who likes to push myself and learn. And I think there are things about the Giving Project that just permanently shifted how I see the world around me, but how I also move through it, especially how I think about my own career and where it intersects with things that I learned in the Giving Project, how I think about what I'm doing when I fundraise for work and for another organization, and just thinking about it differently than I ever would have if I had just been, kind of learning on the job, as it were. Let's see. One more thing I value is, I think as a white person, I feel very grateful for some of the feedback and reactions that I was gifted in the space. And I think that the process of the Giving Project that builds that trust and builds that community early is really part of what made that possible. And to still have relationships 2 years later with people that I went through the project with is been really, really valuable to me. So yeah, lots of sticky moments from the Giving Project that I think will be with me for a long time.
Thank you, Andrea.
Thank you. It's nice to see you
It's
again.
nice to see you again. We love it. And if you want to stick around, Andrea, for the Q&A, you can, but if you have to go, that's also okay. And
No, I'm happy to stay. Thanks.
okay, amazing. Thanks. Okay, let me continue. Okay. Indigo, are you ready?
Yes, I am. Hello, everyone. So my name is Mdigo, and I participated in the 2026 Tenant Housing Justice Giving Project. And what I valued most was how the program connected learning and relationships and action. Um, there was a lot of activities to do that was awesome. We explored housing justice, race, class, philanthropy, all that, how funding decisions can either reinforce inequality or help shift power back to communities. So yeah, and we also learned, directly from the facilitators and people who had lived experiences. Then we put that learning into practice, obviously by fundraising and reviewing applications, the grant applications, and also discussing community needs and collectively deciding like where resources should go. So that was very impactful. And also this the fundraising experience helped me grow personally a lot. Emily knows that. And asking people asking people for money can initially feel very uncomfortable. Uh, Through the Giving Project, I learned that fundraising is not simply asking for donations. Um, it is inviting people to participate in justice and move resources toward solutions led by communities that are most affected. So, the way we see it, really it really determines. And then I also learned that we are not expected to come into the Giving Project already knowing wealthy donors or no so Social Justice Fund provides the training, the coaching, and a prospect list exercise or something, and opportunities to practice your pitch. So you're gonna go through that, and it's awesome. You begin, I don't want to go into details, but you necessarily begin with the people you already know, and then it becomes easy, uh, and then you start breaking the boundaries that you have within yourself, and the fear that holding us back, And then I also valued the relationships within our cohort. That was very special to me. We learned how to listen across differences, respectfully disagree, receive feedback, and making difficult decisions while really remaining accountable to one another and to our shared purpose. So it was mind blowing because our group, our cohort was, we were really different, but we had so much love for each other. So, Andre, and I can see you here, so much love from me to you. And then also, yeah, what I want potential participants to know is that this is a rewarding experience. This is almost priceless, but it is also a real commitment. And so that is where I struggled with, because I had all these things, we do on a daily basis, and then but what I love with the facilitators, Adriana, Emily, Adiza, everyone, they are so supportive. So just know that you will have a full team that will just support you from the beginning. So yeah, it is a rewarding experience. There are meetings, preparation, fundraising, application reviews, and honest conversations, that, you'll go through. And however, you do not need to enter the program, as an expert in fundraising or organizing or grant making. That was very good to know. And, you just coming open-minded to learn and to experience with others. Your lived experience also really matters in this space. So come with curiosity, come with an open mind, a willingness to listen, and a commitment to follow through. Ask for support early, because The staff, as I said, they provide a lot of coaching resources and encouragement throughout this whole process. And then most importantly, don't underestimate your voice. So the Giving Project gives community members a meaningful role in deciding how resources should move. So, you know, yeah. If you want to learn, build genuine relationships, challenge yourself, and support grassroots organizations, I strongly encourage, you to all apply. Yeah. And yeah, so thank you also for this opportunity. I really appreciate it, giving me a chance
Mdigo,
to speak. Yay.
thanks. Thanks so much, Mdigo. Thank you to both of you for your really helpful and informative pieces of your experiences. And Mdigo, you're welcome to stay through the Q&A, but if you have to run, feel free. And thank you for being here.
Thank you. You'll excuse me all. So I'll have to run. And great to see you, Andre.
Bye,
Bye.
Diego.
Thank you.
Bye, all.
Bye.
All the best.
All right. So after hearing that, if you're like super jazzed, we would love to invite you to apply. Um, like I said, we'll send the slides out after, I'll send the slides out tomorrow to all of you. And there's a link here that brings you to the Giving Project webpage, which has the application links if you'd like to apply. And also, if you're interested in this model, and you have folks in other parts of the country who you think might be interested, we do build alongside some other organizations who do the Giving Project model as well. So Bread and Roses Community Fund is out in Philly. Crossroads Fund is in Chicago. Headwaters is in Minneapolis. And Main Initiatives, I believe, is based in Portland, Portland, Maine. So that's just some